Happy New Year, and thank you for tuning into this video. Now, of course, that Happy New Year is if you're watching this relatively soon after I publish it. It is January 2nd, 2021, as I speak to you. And yeah, I think 2021 is going to be an awesome year. I mean, it can't be worse than 2020 on a global scale. I think it's only going to get better from here. And on a personal scale, like in my own life, if you're a regular viewer of mine, you know this already. If you're new, welcome to my channel, and here's a little recap. For me, 2020, it started at a time when I had just recently spoken out against the destructive cult that I was in India. I first spoke publicly against that cult on September 11th of 2019. And so 2020 started at a time when I was under heavy attack by brainwashed members of that cult, when I was interviewing other people who had also escaped that cult about their negative experiences. So it started as a time for me to really purge all of that toxic experience that I had accumulated over 9 years following a fraud, a greedy, narcissistic cult leader. And once I kind of felt like I had said everything I had to say on the subject, I threw myself into art once again and started making videos of drawing and talking, which, I mean, you've probably seen those if you're here. And for me, that really was art therapy. I didn't think of it that way at the time. I just thought of it as, drawing my abstract art that I've always loved to draw. I'm sorry about the shaky camera. It's one of my items on my wish list is one of those cool tripods that people get for their desks that like hold the camera for them from above. The configuration I've got here is that I'm using a cell phone tripod and it's stuck between my couch cushions. And so every time I shift my butt or like readjust my position or sip my coffee, it shakes and it wobbles, and I'm sorry about that. I know how friggin' annoying that is, because when I'm watching somebody's video and their camera shakes, it bugs me, so I'm really sorry. I know that must be annoying for you too. As of now, I'm saving up my Patreon money in a separate little account that's my new tripod fund, and once I've got enough, I'm gonna buy one of those, and then I promise you my video quality will increase. But until then, just bear with me. There's no earthquake going on here. It's just cheap equipment. Anyway, as I was saying, for me, 2020 was a year of purging that negativity and then really just healing myself and learning how to love life once again, how to enjoy art and share personal anecdotes without any guilt or agenda. If you've never been in a cult, this is one of the things that really I wouldn't have known going in or wouldn't have known. Like, it doesn't come up in many interviews with, I've binge watched Leah Remini's videos, and I've binge watched all the stuff about Nexium just because I can relate so much to the ladies who have gotten through those mental prisons. But one thing that doesn't usually come up is the fact that all the unique personality traits about you that make you who you are get relegated to a role in your life as greedy, selfish, personal history that you have overcome to reach this new enlightened delusion of only believing what that man tells you to believe. That back when I was in that cult, things like drawing my abstract pictures felt like an indulgence that was taking away from a greater mission. That if I'm sitting and drawing a picture, I'm wasting time that could be better spent, transcribing some of the bullshit that the fraud on the stage sitting on a golden throne spewed out, or, making videos to try to recruit other people into listening to him. It felt like anything I did that was just for me was wrong while I was in that cult. And I mean, I'm sure you can relate to that too on some level. You don't have to have been in a cult to have experienced that. Like, think back to when you were in high school and had an essay due. Remember how it used to feel when you knew a deadline was coming up for an essay and that you should be, studying some of the sources you're going to quote in that essay as references, or you should be writing a first draft or writing a second draft. And if you read your novel, you feel a little guilty because you're wasting time or you're procrastinating and you could be doing what's important, which is that schoolwork. Basically, for me, being in a cult was like that feeling 24/7. And so in 2019, before I spoke out publicly against the cult, I was still kind of locked in that mentality of being lost and not really knowing what I'm supposed to be doing with myself, because I had left the cult, but I hadn't yet left the fear of the cult. So in September of 2019, when I finally just went public and spoke about the child abuse that two of the kids had confided in me, and kind of just put it out there that, I didn't just leave this fraud cult leader. I left because I found out he is a criminal, and here's all the shit he did to me, and here's the shit I know he's done to other people, and I encourage everyone to leave him. Like, when I finally just said what I had been holding on to, it was such a tremendous release. And then going into 2020, I gave my YouTube channel as a platform for other ex-followers of his who wanted to speak out. I interviewed them and let them share their stories. And to me, that's kind of a healing catharsis. When something bad happens to you and you share it out loud, all the power that negative experience had over your psyche, where you felt ashamed of it or afraid of retaliation if you speak about it, like when you finally let all of that go, such a huge weight is lifted off your shoulders. And so I think part of the healing journey for me in 2020 was making those drawing videos and just savoring the feeling of having a pen on a paper and making pretty marks again, and just not having a goal. I wasn't drawing them to sell them. It's my personal collection of art. I just did it because I like it. When you're in a cult, the cult leader has such a hold over you and such a personal demand of your time that anything you do should be productively given as a service to him. It's like anything you do for yourself or for other people that's unrelated to making money for him or getting followers for him or spreading his message, it's considered useless. And so I think probably for a lot of people who leave cults, but especially in my experience for me, it took me a little bit of time before I could really just relax and enjoy things like a slow cup of coffee in the morning, or gazing out the window and watching the sunset, or drawing a long picture, or talking about things that won't lead to a result. And what's really funny is, like, if you read the actual Vedic scriptures, if you read any spiritual text, I'm thinking specifically the Bhagavad Gita. Like, Krishna talks to Arjuna about taking action, like do the action without the attachment to the result of the action. To me, that is still pure spirituality. Right now, I'm doing the action of making this video. I'm going to do a flip through of this journal that I made. I'm going to talk about these talismans that I've made, without the attachment to the result. Like, if somebody buys this journal or buys these necklaces, that's great. But if they don't, I'm still fulfilled by the fact that I made them, and I'm proud of them, and I'm happy to share them in this kind of show and tell like context. So yeah, 2020. It was a year of, I sound like Barbara Walters, 2020. It was a year of purging negativity and then kind of reclaiming my independent enjoyment of life. Now for 2021, I've set for myself a personal goal. Like you could call it a New Year's resolution, I suppose. My goal for this year is to drop my fear of speaking about my spiritual experiences in these YouTube videos. When I dropped the cult, I kind of went a little bit too far in the direction of atheism, and it's just not who I am. I was on a few podcasts led by highly intelligent, talented, articulate, amazing people who have also left cults, who really embraced atheism as the modality through which to see reality. And for a while there, I kind of felt like all of my spiritual experiences in life were maybe discrediting the validity of what I had to say about the cult, because if I still believe in the power of gemstones and crystals, if I still really cherish the experiences I've had relating to extraterrestrial intelligence and you know, my joy of hearing voices claiming to be Arcturians, like, I know that the great majority of critical thinkers out there who are in the anti-cult movement, which I revere, and to which I would really love to contribute, just for the sake of helping other people leave oppressive thought systems and highly controlling cultic groups. But I kind of felt like my words would be invalid if I still share the beautiful visions I've had in meditations and, you know, the belief I have in Arcturians. Like, yes, I still believe in them to answer lots and lots of questions I see under videos asking me to talk about that once again. I don't think crystals and gemstones are just a placebo. I definitely admit that I could be wrong about this, and maybe they are just placebo effect, that certain mystically inclined individuals with magical thinking, as the psychologists would classify it, maybe we're just like loopy out there crazy people and we pick up crystals and feel their energy because we have a very minor form of psychosis. Like, whatever, maybe, but I don't think so. Like, quartz can power watches, tourmaline crystals can be used in Swiss clocks to give them the perfected timekeeping. Like, if these crystals have practical applications, piezoelectricity and the ability to store information literally in the form of memory chips in computers and other technological devices, then why is it so far-fetched to say that they can also be programmed with our positive intentions and with our meditative goals and with our higher conscious aspirations? To me, it's a no-brainer. And that doesn't mean I'm brainless. You know, like, things that come to us intuitively are no less valuable than things that come to us through study and through intellectual discourse and through academia. I believe the world right now is predominated by the patriarchal masculine construct that really favors what's quantifiable, measurable, visible, audible, provable. And that I do believe we're moving into a time when it will become more accepted that the more feminine forms of wisdom, like intuition, compassion, the ability to feel somebody else's feelings and empathize, when those more maternal traits will become favored equally with the paternal. And I really hope we move out of this patriarchal civilization, not into a matriarchal civilization. I'm not saying women should dominate and that science text should be thrown out the window and that we should only be intuitive, because like that wouldn't be good either. I think we need the balance between the best of both, the masculine logic and the feminine intuition, the masculine order and the feminine free flow, creative impulse, the right brain and the left brain. Okay, I've gone off on a tangent I did not plan for this video, so let me get more into the point and just share the show and tell stuff that I have in front of you here. Yeah, so like I said, 2021 for me is the year of just letting my freak flag fly once again, letting my joy and my love for crystals not be something that I'm a little bit ashamed of because it might devalue what I have to say about cults. Like allowing my curiosity about new age things and spiritual things and mystical things and starseed things just flood me with the same joy they always did, and not feel like I have to censor that. I think when you're in a cult or when you're in a rigid, controlled group, you start to repress aspects of yourself that don't fit in with the narrative of that group. But when you are a free-thinking, self-sovereign individual, you can be whoever you want to be. Like, if you believe in unicorns and fairies and elves, like, good for you. Show me your favorite glittery thing, you know? If you believe in Hinduism, which I still do, I still believe in Sanatana Dharma, even though a fraud who claimed to be an incarnation of Shiva took me on a 9-year descent into his cult of control. I think he's an asura. I think he's a negative entity who's preying on seekers and using and abusing them in order to gain what he thinks is power, but that his power is going to dissolve it and leave him with less than nothing. Because if any of us ever get left with nothing, but we've never deliberately hurt or stolen from people, we can build ourselves back up again with the grace of existence. But somebody who's been sitting on a golden throne, raping women and men and teenagers and just charging an exorbitant sum of money for services that those people could get even better versions of for free just by reading some scriptures and looking within and meditating and doing yoga on their own. That kind of a fraudster is just the most contemptible. Like, to be honest, I feel sorry for that fraud who I used to follow, because he is so locked in fear and greed. He might not even see it himself, but the fall he is setting himself up for is worse than any of the abuses he's committed against any of his followers. I would not want to trade places with him for all the billions of dollars he has swindled from people. Like, anyway, yeah, when you're a free-thinking individual, you get to live your life and do what you love, and at the end of the day, if people agree with you, that's great. If they don't agree with you, that's also great. And I think the best connections we can have are not necessarily with other people who believe everything we believe, who agree with everything we say. I think some of the best relationships we can have with people will be when there's an exchange of information and an exchange of perspectives. So any of the psychiatrists and psychologists I've been looking into regarding cult deprogramming, all the podcasts led by other people who left cults, whether they come from the logical mind or the intuitive mind, I appreciate everything all of them have to say, and will continue following all of them, and will no longer be afraid that they might discover the truth about me, that I'm still totally 100% magically minded. If you're not familiar with that specific terminology. Let me just explain, backtrack for a second. Magical thinking is a psychological term that describes people who believe in mystical experiences. Like, from a Christian mystic perspective, somebody who has a vision of the Virgin Mary, or who feels like they see a guardian angel in their room, those people would be psychologically described as believing in delusions because of a magical thinking pattern. People like me, who have heard Arcturian voices and who have seen visions of Hindu gods and goddesses in meditation, would be called magical thinkers. And it would be said that we believe in, what's the word for it? When you see something that's not there, not an apparition. Apparition is kind of like, if you believe in it, that's what you call it. But yeah, there's a scientific term. I'm sure it'll come to me a few minutes from now when I've moved on to another subject. But people who believe in stuff that they see that's not real are described as having magical thinking. So I'm just going to own it. I could be right, I could be wrong. My experiences could be genuine. They could also be delusions. Whatever it is what it is. And if I enjoy it, it's not hurting anybody. What was hurting me was when I tried to deny all of those aspects of myself and drop them because they didn't fit within the framework of what I thought would be a good critical thinking cult exposer. Anyway, you've probably been looking at these 3 necklaces that I have on my journal here to show you, so I'm finally going to talk about them. And these were the first pieces of jewelry I made this year. Actually, I made this one on New Year's Eve, so right before the change into 2021. Then I made these 2 yesterday, so on January 1st. They're part of that new resolution I've set for myself, which is to make these divine talismans that, fit with the frequency, fit with the resonance of what I'm choosing to once again admit that I believe in. And here's the funny thing. It's not like I ever stopped believing in Arcturians. It's not like I ever stopped believing in crystals. But when I started saying in videos, yeah, they're likely to be placebo effect based on scientific logic and reasoning, it's kind of like I had put myself back into the closet and didn't want to come out as a loopy, new agey, magically minded spiritualist. But yeah, so I'm ready to come out with it again. I'll start with the left. I'll just read it like a book. This is a talisman that I call The Truth Is Out There. The little sculptural face, I made this actually last year when I was still learning how to use polymer clay, and when I was sculpting shamanic faces to make into crystal talismans. This one, as I took the face out of the mold, I kind of pinched in the cheeks to give it the look of cheekbones, and I pinched a little too hard, and suddenly it started to look like what we think are extraterrestrials, what we see as being like the X-Files version of a so-called alien. And instead of kind of reworking the clay and putting it back in the mold and trying to get a more humanoid face, I decided to go with it because I love those kinds of conspiracy theory things. I love the show Ancient Aliens. I just think that stuff is fun. And so I dusted it with this kind of greenish opalescent mica powder. I'm glad there's a bit of sunlight today so you can kind of see the luster on these pieces. So yeah, I finished the face and the back with this kind of silvery gray polymer clay, and that to me is like a representation of the gray matter, or like the brains behind the facade that we portray to the world. And then I added some of the gold because I just love gold. Gold is my favorite metal. And then in the middle I put this beautiful black Tektite. And I love Moldavite and Tektite, especially in its raw form. I see a lot of jewelry designers using tumbled Moldavite or faceted polished Moldavite and Tektite, and to me, it loses some of its charm when you polish it and do away with the natural, air bubbles and markings, because to me it's those air bubbles and those markings that tell you the history of the space glass. Tektite, if you don't know already, is formed when a meteorite impacts with the planet, and nobody really knows. By nobody, I don't mean like us mystical folk. I mean like scientifically, it's inconclusive whether a Tektite is meteoric material that has landed on Earth, that was kind of melted in the atmosphere and then landed as this glassy substance, or whether it's the sand from terrestrial material that gets melted by the heat of a meteorite and basically becomes this glass. What they have speculated is that it has definitely flown into the Earth's atmosphere, where it's solidified once again in the cold after being kind of that molten rock that gets kind of tossed up by impact. But the general consensus is that it's a combination of both extraterrestrial and terrestrial material. So it's like that, when a meteorite enters Earth's atmosphere, it starts burning up. And that's why when you see a meteor, if you're ever so lucky as to see a shooting star, the tail behind it, that fiery bright tail streaking behind the meteor, it is the fire in the sky, I think, is another way Moldavite has been described. That's as it's burning up before impact. And so a lot of the majority, I would say, of gemologists and geologists believe that Tektite is a combination both of that meteoric material as well as the earthly rock, sand, dirt that gets melted by that intense heat when it impacts. And so to me, Tektite is like the perfect combination of earth and space. And it's like there's that beautiful concept, as above, so below, that what happens in the universe and the galaxy beyond us and the great unknown has an influence and has an effect on our lives. So as far as like astrology is concerned, the specific alignments of the specific stars and planets in the sky at any given moment, they're not just out there existing, they're also having an influence on us down here. One of my other goals for 2021 is to learn a little bit more about astrology, because it's always been a realm that fascinates me, but that seemed a little too technical and too mathematical and too precise for me. So I'm going to try to break some of my personal mental barriers that I can't learn that because it involves charts and those are specific and I don't do well with that kind of thing. So one of my aunties gave me a gift certificate for books for Christmas, for my birthday. And I used her gift certificate to buy an introductory guide to astrology. So I'm going to start reading that when it arrives, and I'll probably share some of that in a video as I do. The next piece, the one that I made on New Year's Eve, I would say, like, I'm a little bit jealous of whoever's going to buy this. If I kept every piece of jewelry that I've made and fallen in love with, I would have like thousands of pieces of beaded jewelry and no apartment to live in. So no, and please don't. I said that about a piece of jewelry once in a video, and a very kind, loving viewer actually bought that piece of jewelry and said, "Don't send it to me, keep it." I'm not saying that I'm jealous of whoever's going to get this, because I yearn to keep it. If I really, really, really wanted a piece, I would make another one and put one for sale and keep one for myself. But I'm just saying, I love this necklace, and I'm happy for whoever buys it because I feel it's a very special piece, and I hope they cherish it as much as I enjoyed the process of creating it. I think as jewelry artists, we feel a different connection to the jewelry we make than people who don't make jewelry, obviously, like, duh, Sarah. When I make a piece of jewelry and feel extremely satisfied with the way it looks as a finished piece, I also feel a sort of excitement that when somebody else gets it, maybe they'll send me a picture of how it looks on. Maybe I'll get to know like how well enjoyed it's been. One of my pen pals, Elena, who has a channel, Elena Enchanted, for example, she bought some earrings from my Etsy shop, and I got so excited one day when I was watching one of her YouTube videos. She does really cool mystical unboxings of things like, I forget the names. I don't have any of those box subscriptions. Usually, like, the shipping to Canada is more expensive than the actual box itself, so I just can't justify spending that kind of money. But I've watched some of her videos where she unboxes like mystical monthly boxes of stuff, like astrology themed, gemstone themed, crystal themed, goddess themed, witchy kind of themed. And in one of those, she was wearing a pair of earrings that I sent her as a gift with purchase. I got so excited because sometimes, like 99% of the time, if I sell a piece of jewelry, once I pack it up and ship it off, that's the end of the story. Like that's the last I ever see of it. So it's really cool to see something I've made actually out there in the world getting used. Pardon me, I had to have a sip of my coffee. And Laurence is another one. She might even be watching this video, so hi to you. There's your little shout out to Laurence. I would say she is my best customer in my shop, The Art of Gems, because she posts the most beautiful photos that she takes of herself wearing the pieces I've made. A pair of pre-night dangly earrings with a matching ring that I custom made for her. Another custom ring. It's too bad it's set on a table far enough away that I can't reach it without disturbing my filming setup, so I can't show it to you right now. But basically, she just takes the most gorgeous, like studio quality looking photos of the jewelry she buys and posts them on Instagram. So it is so cool to see those creations being worn and enjoyed. So anyway, there's my little spiel, because I'm not saying I want somebody to buy me this necklace I made. I actually made another necklace on New Year's Eve for myself. So don't worry about me. I'm not hurting for jewelry. Like I keep myself, as you can see just by my wrists here, I keep myself well bejeweled. Anyway, I digress. Back to the topic. I am happy for whoever is going to buy this piece because I really feel it is one of my best pieces yet. The crystal in this pendant is just such a rare stone. I actually falsely labeled it when I posted about this on Instagram and Facebook by calling it a scepter quartz. It's actually the opposite of scepter quartz. It's a consumption quartz. So a scepter quartz is a stone that has a top that kind of goes in, so that on top of the crystal there's like a protruding tip, sort of like a crown jewel on top of a stick or a scepter. Consumption quartz, I'm not sure, I'm trying to get it in focus here. See where the tops of the crystal kind of go in and then there's the point? It's because that little point at the very top was a fully formed quartz crystal that this other crystal formed over top and around of, so it consumed it. And energetically speaking, consumption quartzes are known for helping you regenerate your life and start fresh and not drop everything that you've learned along the way, but kind of integrate it and move beyond it. So I feel that is such a powerful, profound talisman or metaphor for the renewed cycle of moving into a new year. Like, if there were one crystal formation that best represents transition and transformation, it would be a consumption quartz. And the other thing, thank you to the sunlight for shining so beautifully as I film this. See the lines, the horizontal lines that are kind of striping down each face of this crystal, kind of looking like a ladder moving from the bottom to the top, especially on the main face here. I'll see if I can get it. There we go. There's still a little golden mica powder from when I covered the sculpted part, but all of these little striations, all of these little horizontal lines that move like a ladder up the face, make this crystal into what crystal healers call a Lemurian seed. And the belief is that in the ancient civilization of Lemuria, there was a more matriarchal society structure that really favored spiritual wisdom and intuition and compassion, and that energy or that understanding gets coded into these quartz crystals, and that when you kind of move up these striation lines, I just like the way they feel. It's almost like reading a crystal healer's version of Braille. There, I think that's a good angle. You see those little lines on the tip of the crystal here. That climbing those lines or ascending that to the tip of the crystal, and this one's double terminated, so it goes both ways, which is even better, unlocks that wisdom for you. So it's a Lemurian seed, it's a double terminated, it's a consumption quartz, like this one crystal. That's why I said I'm a little jealous of whoever buys it. It's not jealousy, it's more excitement to share the gift. Like, I got to bond with this crystal while making the piece and to feel its energy and to meditate with it. Even right now as I film this video holding it, that wisdom I feel is filling me. What's really cool, in the Book of Stones, Robert Simmons and Naisha Ashim described crystal energy and said that photographs and videos of crystals will also transmit that energy. So people who see a picture of a stone, it won't be as intense as if you hold the actual stone, but you'll gain part of that. You can still kind of experience the crystal energy or that frequency when you look at its picture. So I kind of feel like, here we go, we're all sharing this right now. The band around the stone is actually something that I sculpted out of a vegan-friendly polymer clay. And so that whole thing, like where it's held in place, every single one of these little rock-like shapes, I hand sculpted them. Some of them, fortunately or unfortunately, you can see my fingerprints in them because of how I was manipulating the clay. So the hand of the artist shows in the final piece. It's kind of like the sculptural equivalent of brush strokes. And I embedded in that this beautiful chrysocolla cabochon. And in the Book of Stones, chrysocolla is described as a stone of the throat chakra, specifically energizing those who use sound frequency to heal. In that deck I mentioned a long time ago, what feels like forever ago because of how many tangents I've gone off on, but earlier in this video I mentioned the crystal ally cards. In that deck, chrysocolla was described as the card for sacred sound. So anyone who does a drum circle, who plays an instrument, who sings, who does any kind of sacred sound, whether it's crystal bowls or Tibetan singing bowls or just tapping your hands to a tune when it gets stuck in your head, that music, that sound gets imbued with the energy of healing if you do it with that intention to heal, and wearing a piece of chrysocolla amplifies that healing intention. Moving up the necklace, these two statement beads are actually from India. I ordered those last year from a company based in South India that remakes ancient traditional gold pieces in gold-plated metals. So the artisans who were kind of born into those jewelry making families can still carry on the tradition of making traditional jewelry, but available to a wider audience because it's, of course, much more affordable when it's gold-plated. I just love the history behind these kinds of pieces that have that traditional design element to them. And I love pieces like beads that are not mass produced. I love things that are handmade. So I try to support other artists and their handmade things and kind of incorporate that into my jewelry. Then of course, Herkimer Diamonds, turquoise, another stone for the throat chakra, for that sacred communication. And then these aquamarines. They're not gem grade in the sense that they're not perfectly transparent or translucent, but they are so stunningly blue. Like, look at the little crystal reflections on the sketchbook that this is kind of releasing. I think that's the Herkimer Diamonds doing it. Anyway, they're not the most perfect translucent aquamarines ever, but they are the bluest natural. They are not dyed. That is the natural color. If you're a gem fan like I am, you know it's kind of rare to find aquamarine that's in that really coveted, sought after blue color. So I just love those beads. Then more turquoise, more Herkimer diamonds, Larimar, the stone of the goddess. I'm rushing myself through now. And here comes Oreo to sniff it. Sorry, I'm going to have to kind of readjust my setup as my cat is trying to get onto my lap. There's her whiskers. Yeah, so that's a very special talisman. Hey, Oreo. Would you mind sitting on the other part of my lap instead of... Whoops. There she goes. I have to kind of let her... I don't think she's going to settle down. There we go. There you go, girlie. Hopefully she'll settle comfortably. Yeah, she's settling down. She usually sits on my lap, like right up against my chin. She'll sleep vertically, not horizontally, like up against my body. She is a very cuddly kitty. So it's kind of an adjustment for her when I'm doing something worky on my lap. Pardon me, I'm taking a cat moment and just petting her so she settles down. Yeah, that's why if you buy stuff from my Etsy shop, like, sorry, there's probably going to be a couple of cat hairs stuck to the washi tape I decorate the package with, and maybe a couple stuck to the velvet or to the pouches that the jewelry comes in. They're not velvet. They're, yeah, like, see, there's cat hair I have to pick off of this necklace now. Anyhow, the last piece that I made that I think is just stunning, this is going to really, I think, look awesome on whoever buys it. I'm listing this and the Truth Is Out There necklace as men's necklaces just because the design is masculine enough that it wouldn't look too girly on a guy's guy, like on a very masculine male. But of course, they're unisex designs. Like, that's not to say a woman couldn't wear it, or a person who doesn't identify as either binary gender couldn't wear it. Like, they're omni-gender designs, so anybody can wear them. If you look for them in my shop, they will be in the men's necklace section, just because, like I said, they wouldn't look too dainty for a man. For a man who likes to dress manly. Anyway, this one is made using a really chunky piece of blue kyanite. And blue kyanite is the ultimate stone for psychic awakening, for the third eye, for intuition. It's a stone that I used to keep on my tarot table back when I was doing professional tarot readings, because it facilitates that opening of intuitive energy. So whenever a client sat down, the way I would do my readings was I would spread the cards out on the table and then ask my client to shuffle the deck, to mix them up so that it was their energy, not my energy, leading the reading. And I would tell them, just shuffle until you feel the cards are ready. Once in a while, a person would start to tear up and say, like, I don't know when they feel ready, because a lot of people don't trust themselves. They don't trust their own intuition. If they're shuffling the cards and their inner voice is saying, okay, now they're ready, they'll second guess and question that and think, well, was that my intuition or was that just my mind? Whenever somebody kind of got caught in that lack of self-trust and felt like their intuition wasn't strong enough to lead the reading themselves, I would let them hold a piece of kyanite and just breathe with it. And 10 times out of 10, like every single time, it was a no-fail method to help them tune in, trust their inner voice, and the readings would always flow successfully from there. And so to this day, if anybody asks me which stone I recommend most for awakening intuition, for opening the third eye, not in the cultic sense that the fraud I used to follow would say it. It's not going to make it so that suddenly when your eyelids are closed, you see through your forehead. Like, that's not practical or necessary. What I mean when I say open the third eye is being able to discern the difference between intuition and assumption. It's when you're able to understand what's coming from your space of inner guidance as opposed to what you believe based on your doubts and your conditioning. It's basically empowering. So when people ask for which stone I'd recommend for that, I say kyanite. So on the kyanite, I've stuck this beautiful Mahalakshmi. She's sitting very beautifully in this temple structure. And this is the last piece that I have from that set. So yeah, it's kind of the end of an era, because for a few years now, I've been working my way through all of the Lakshmis who are enthroned in this particular design. It's time for me to start using some new Lakshmi pendants that I bought from that South Indian distributor. Anyway, I've put her on the kyanite. There are drops of beautiful high-grade gem citrine dangling from her. Citrine is the stone of wealth and manifestation, so it only made sense that the goddess of abundance, who keeps her hand ever open, flooding her devotees with wealth, it only makes sense that the stone of wealth is literally dripping beneath her. So it's like a physical, tangible, crystal manifestation of Lakshmi's energy and what she represents. I'll turn it to the side so you can see this. On top of her, I've attached a Herkimer diamond and an iolite. Iolite is a stone of shamanism, also connected to the third eye, and so is lapis lazuli, the other gem I've used in here. Lotus seed is also a representation of Lakshmi. It represents the pure energy of the soul, that divinity within you that can never be marred by the earthly experience, that it's like the essence of purity that can never be contaminated. So like the way a lotus grows in the muck, like in a muddy, sludgy pond, but the petals just whisk off any impurity. The lotus seed represents that as the innate core within each of us, that we may be in this world surrounded by chaos and disorder and destruction and death and hostility and anger and unfairness, but our core true spiritual nature is never that. Even when you're at your worst, even in the most negative of situations, you are always that pure divine essence that's only experiencing the limitation throughout the time of your journey in this human body on planet Earth. So I like to use lotus seeds when I make a Lakshmi talisman, or when I make a lot of different jewelry, but especially when I make a piece using Lakshmi, because it just so beautifully represents that energy. And then for the main strand of this necklace, I used these bamboo Heishi beads. It's a good, organic looking, renewable resource. So while men's jewelry would sometimes have like a tube of leather or mahogany, or like a non-sustainable kind of wood, I always keep to my vegan principles and never use something destructive to the environment. I try to keep my jewelry sustainable and eco-friendly. I wish, like, I'm looking at these aquamarines in the sunlight, and then when I glance at the screen on my camera, it is not doing it justice. I wish you could see how gorgeous and vibrantly blue they are in real life. Oh, they're just so pretty. Anyway, those are my 3 talismans. So I hope you enjoyed that little delve into crystal healing energy. My friend Kelsey told me she started a podcast, and at some point when she's got the technical stuff worked out, and I think she's got an editor who's kind of between equipment right now, so when it's all good to go, she's invited me to go on her podcast to talk about the talismanic power of jewelry and the history of jewelry, and why wearing certain pieces kind of helps us achieve goals and connect with spiritual states. I am like so excited about that, and so I'm trying not to talk too much about that on my channel. I'm trying to kind of save it for her podcast, but this was a nice little prelude to that by describing these specific pieces. But maybe, like, let me know in the comments if any of the topics I've kind of touched on here intrigue you, and you'd like a more in-depth discussion about them. I would be happy to make another video more specifically about any or all of that. So yeah, let me know, and I'll start keeping my new list of videos to make in 2021. Anyhow, on to the final chapter, or the main course of this little video, which is my space-themed junk journal. Let me kind of readjust my tripod so you can see more of it here. That's better. I should have done that in the beginning. Anyway, I made this book a couple of weeks ago. This is vegan, of course, faux suede that I made as the tie to hold it shut. I love those old journals that have a tie closure because you can stuff them with extra pieces of paper. Oops, I'm just gonna set my jewelry to the side because I keep worrying about knocking those necklaces down as I'm showing this. That's better. Yeah, I love old journals that have tie closures because you can fill them up by sticking business cards or note papers or letters or other things into them. And even if they're not bound into the book, once it's wrapped closed, it holds it in place. So I'm trying to put these on all of the journals I make. The cover is made out of 2 envelopes like the other ones I showed you. But what I love about this one is that I decorated the flap of the envelope with different strips of washi tape. And washi tape, if you're crafty, you already know this. If you're just not into making crafts, here's a little FYI. Washi tape is not meant to be permanently adhered. It's kind of like a craft tape. If you ever do a watercolor painting, you know how you have to tape off the edges of your page before you paint? Washi tape is perfect for that because it doesn't leave a glue residue. It's like a temporary tape. But because I wanted this to be permanently adhered, I actually painted the flap with a layer of glue first and then stuck the tape down. So if you buy this, or if you feel so inspired to purchase it, don't worry, it's not going to ever peel up. This washi tape is permanently stuck down. In the center, I stuck this pretty sticker that I just love because I'm a sky gazer. Like, my favorite form of meditation next to drawing abstract art, I would say, is going outside on a clear night, finding a group of trees like these, like exactly like these evergreens. That's the kind of tree that grows here in Lethbridge, Alberta. I love walking outside, standing within a group of trees and looking up at the stars in the sky. The reason personally why I like to do that better in a group of trees is that they block out the street light, and light pollution or light contamination really dulls the appearance of stars. I love that true dark sky experience, so I just thought it was a cool image to use on a journal cover because it's kind of something I do anyway. And then this kind of abstract looking gold paint that goes around it, that's a textured fabric paint that I used as a frame. And I was inspired by crop circle patterns as I did this, as you can see, and kind of mirrored the look on this particular strand of washi tape. So the lines, the dots, the circles, that's my little ode to the circle makers. Inside the flap, there's this picture of a night sky over the ocean. I randomly stuck some glow-in-the-dark stars on it, so it might be fun to hold this under a light and then take it into a dark room and look at it glow. The front cover is just again, part of the envelope flap, but I stuck some space-themed paper on it. I coffee dyed this paper doily so it wouldn't look too harshly white. So don't worry, it's not like disgustingly dirty and grungy. It's actually deliberately made to look that way, using a coffee dye. And then this cool star, I actually cut out from a piece of wrapping paper that I recycled. And so again, like why people call these books junk journals, it's not because the book is junk. To me, the book is a piece of treasure. But some of the materials used are scraps or would otherwise have been disposed of, so they're a great way to recycle. Now into the book. The pages that I've printed out and to use as the main pages like this, they were actually a printable set that I found on Etsy. I'll put a link. I forget the name of the girl's shop. But she makes these collages and sells them as packages, like PDF packages or JPEG packages, so you can print the paper yourself. And that's what I did. So I didn't design this, but I did find this vintage stamp. It's from 1984, which is kind of cool. That's the year I was born. So this is a real stamp. I didn't print it. That's the actual original one. I stuck it here to just give a real collage element to this printed digital collage, and then to give it that kind of postal look, I put a stamp of Saturn over it. This side of the page I find more exciting. I used one of those manila kind of business envelopes to create this pocket. I printed this on coffee dyed art paper, so whoever gets this journal, this is like the front plate where you write like this book belongs to, and then your name or the title that you'd want to give the journal and maybe the date that it was started, however you want to do that. And I added this cool wax seal that I'm obsessed with this particular wax seal. One of my pen pals had it and used it on a letter that she sent me. Don't mind the cat hair. Like I said, I'll be picking off cat hair as we go. But yeah, it just fit with the space theme. So there's a wax seal, and then when this flips open, the first spot to actually journal in the book is held within that cover page. So I put this ripped out piece of stationery, stamped some spacey stuff on it, and then hid it within the envelope. This map of the constellations, I actually found it on an online archive of, like, you can do Google image searches for antique imagery that is no longer like held under copyright. Like anything that was drawn or painted, I think 150 years ago or earlier, becomes public domain. So it's no longer held under copyright. This is an ancient, by ancient I mean like probably the Age of Enlightenment or Renaissance aged piece of art. So it shows the constellations. I printed that out, stuck it here because it fits the theme so well. In this pocket, I put a vintage French ad that had some stars on the border, so it's not exactly a space-themed ad, but it looks spacey with the star border. And it's from the 1950s, so that's a genuine, not an antique yet, but a genuine piece of vintage paper. The moon cycle sticker. I should go a little quicker. This video will be like 5 hours long if I describe each and every element. This is a copy of one of my drawings that I coffee dyed, and I called this drawing the Moon Gazers because of accidentally there was this little group that look almost like people staring up at this circle that looks almost like a moon. I drew this in 2008, so in my pre-cult days. And I think I was at my grandma's house the day I drew it, or I brought my sketchbook to my grandma's house. And she looked at this one and said, "Oh, I like the moon gazers." And so that's where the title comes from. She saw it before I did, and yeah, it just fit. And then some of the pages I just decorated with stamps and washi tape. This is another from that printable kit. I made a pocket out of a piece of a paper doily, added some little circle stickers and washi tape. I made this little bookmark that's functional. It has little strips of scrap paper on the back, so you can write phone numbers on those, you can write passwords to your accounts. It's a good little mini book within the book to keep other things. More coffee dyed paper. This little pocket is made out of space-themed origami paper, and I've stuck some mini note pages with a space theme into it. So it's kind of like a little gift with purchase. More printables. There's a chart of all the Zodiac Signs plus the constellation. I thought that was really cool. Grid paper. This is a page from my Aunt Mary Lynn's old art history textbook that she gave me when I was in high school. And I've mentioned in previous videos, I do not feel guilty ripping pages out of it to use in junk journals because it already had a lot of pages ripped out of it when it was gifted to me. And like all of her favorite paintings were cut out of it. Here's another one of those tags with a strip of washi tape on the back. And I kind of thickened up these bookmark tags by gluing other paper to them. So I stuck an old book page on the back of this one, just to give it more strength. This band is made out of a kind of a star-themed strip of paper. So whoever gets the book, like you can use this bookmark separately. It doesn't have to stay here. And you can stick anything into this band that you want to. Like the way I try to make these junk journals when I make them to sell is so that any added elements can be played with and kept or taken out. This one is glued down solidly, so that's a good little drawing area. This paper is coffee dyed art paper, so that will do really well with mixed media. Like if you want to paint on it or use markers on it, it's thick enough that it won't bleed through to the next page. More of that printable pack. Another one of these removable bookmarks. This one I put a strip of coffee dyed paper on using a strip of this moon phase washi tape. It is not glued down, so you can peel that off and stick it somewhere else if you want to, or keep it as it is. It won't hurt my feelings if somebody buys this and completely tears it apart and redoes it. But I tried to leave a lot of the pages totally blank too. Like this can easily be written over or drawn on. This too, because it is meant to be a junk journal. It's not meant to be like a book that somebody keeps exactly as it is, though of course you could do that too. The way I've seen other crafters on YouTube use pages like this, all the part that's kind of printed on can still be used as a background for collage. So you can put stickers here or tape scraps here or glue other papers onto it. Or you can leave it as it is and just write or draw in that kind of circular splotch of beige colored blank page. What I love about these so-called junk journals is that there's no right or wrong way to use any of them. Here's some space-themed sticky notes. They're like Post-it notes, but with a pretty picture printed. Another piece of that printable collection. I love putting different shaped papers and different textured papers in these books because I love that tactile sense of touching paper. And so I put a couple paper doilies sewn in and more just blank pages. This is the center of the book, and I added another one of these coffee dyed doilies just like the one on the cover, and in the center put a little washi sticker of stars, a little galactic sticker. And then it's just the other side of every paper you've already seen. So where there was an envelope flap, now there's a whole envelope. I stuck some cards in here. They're little mini cards. They have that perforated edge because they were actually attached to postcards I've sent. So again, it's scraps in a junk journal, but that can be used. A little folded page in another one of these pockets. These stickers I thought just look perfect with this page. This printout is an image I designed based on the idea of just creating a very simple, writable, spacey looking background page. But the stickers I stuck on it, I actually bought in my friend Elena's Etsy shop. So she has a shop called Elena Enchanted. Elena or Elena? I always forget. I think Elena. Elena Enchanted. I bought a pack of her Zodiac stickers that are kind of big, beautiful stickers, and these were the freebies that came with them. They come with every set, so it wasn't just special for me, but the pack of Zodiac stickers comes with a few extras, and I just loved the way they look, kind of that honeycomb pattern of stars. They're really good quality. They're thick stickers. So as I said when I showed you that handmade Indian bead on my Voice of the Healer necklace, I love to buy handmade items from other creators instead of buying mass-produced stuff. And the printable kit that I bought, designed by a girl who sells them on Etsy, instead of just finding stock images and using them, or like buying mass-produced books. Like you can buy crafters books that are filled with pages to cut out and use for collages, like stock, royalty-free stock images. But I think there's just so much more energy and uniqueness when you support other artists and kind of incorporate that into your work. So yeah, I think there's like a little community of us who are on Etsy that we like to support each other. Or I've got it right here. I was just using this beautiful little set of golden paints that Jacqueline sent me for my birthday. So thank you again, Jacqueline. I used these yesterday in my journal when I created my sigil for the year of 2021. Maybe I'll talk more about that in my next video. And I just figured out that these little flower cutouts are for doing paint swatches, so I'll do those next. But it's really cool because these little handmade watercolor paints were also made by someone who sells them in her Etsy shop. So again, supporting another artist. This pocket is actually a printout of a giant astrology themed stamp that I bought from a shop that sells vintage postal stuff. This is not the original envelope stamp, but it's It's a photocopy of that vintage stamp. And I used it as a pocket to hold another little booklet made of scrap papers. So the dot grid, the grid with one of these kind of spacey reinforcers. And I love having little books within books in these kinds of junk journals, because sometimes, not for me anymore, now that I've got this giant paper blanks book with these bigger than A4 pages, but there were times in my life when I just wanted to draw something small or write something as an idea to expand on later, and I would have felt daunted by a full page. So for times like that, if you want to just jot down a dream that you had or an idea for something you'd like to write more about later, having these little scrap pages can be just the right size. And it's also nice, for example, if you're out and all you've got with you is your journal, and somebody asks you for your phone number or your email address and you have nothing else to write on, having a little booklet like this where you can rip a strip off of it without feeling like you've just ruined your book is really good. Okay, back to it. I made this collage using a piece of a napkin and a little strip, more of that Christmas wrapping paper. And then another bit of that Christmas, you can tell I love that wrapping paper. I found that wrapping paper, no promotion for this one or for anything, but surprisingly it was at Shoppers Drug Mart, which is not where you'd expect to find something this mystical looking. It has these awesome Egyptian scarabs holding lapis lazuli stones embedded in gold with these symmetrical stars. I wrapped all of the gifts I gave last year in it and then just kept the rest of it, thinking it's too pretty to get like torn randomly off gifts and disposed of. That needs to be featured somewhere. Another bookmark. This one I put an ad that was in the Waterton Lakes National Park magazine. It's an ad for the Dark Skies tour, which is just so cool. One of these years, I would love to go on that little tour and see the stars in the mountains in Waterton. Oops. And then some more blank pages from the printouts. This page was fun to make. It's a fold down journaling spot. So again, it's just a big blank coffee dyed paper that can be written on. I glued it down as a pocket, so here's more paper strips. You can tell I went wild with the little book within the book in this one and just used a lot of scraps, a lot of extra pages, tried to put in a lot of pockets, and I'm sure whoever buys it will, well, I hope whoever buys it will love that stuff as much as I do. Here's more astrology symbols. So earlier there was a sticker showing all the Zodiac constellations. This one, instead of the constellations, it shows the illustrated symbols of the constellations. Sorry, the pictographs of the constellations. And then this wheel has the symbols of those constellations. So we've got symbol, pictograph, and somewhere over here, the star constellations. I've got to find it now, right? You know what I'm talking about. These. So the actual star constellations, the pictures, and the symbols. I'm a nerd when it comes to stuff like that, so if there are 3 ways to represent something, I want to include all 3 of them. And another little mini pocket, and I've put some stickers in here so that whoever buys it, you can either use these stickers to decorate your journal some more, or give them away, or use them in a completely different, unrelated craft. As I said earlier in the video, it wouldn't hurt me if somebody buys this and tears it apart and just reuses everything. And then we're coming to the end. On this page, I made a little pocket out of a separate piece of paper that can be removed. So this can be used as a bookmark, and this can also work as a pocket to hold something. Which reminds me, okay, back to the topic of tarot and oracle cards. I bought this deck of Moonology cards. It was very inexpensive. I bought them not to use for card readings, but to include when people buy stuff from my Etsy shop. Not the Art of Gems, where I sell jewelry, but Art of Gems stationery, where I sell junk journals like this and pen pal kits and stuff like that. So when people buy space-themed things, I thought it would be a fun gift with purchase to include these. And they would make especially good washi tape holders. But while I've got you in this video, I will pull a random card. I'm not going to show you what it is. That is for, I'll do a 3-card draw. So whoever buys this junk journal, those 3 cards are like the little oracle card message for them. Each of these cards has a different message, like a fiery climax approaches, or luck is on your side, or balanced spirituality and practicality. And they're based on the lunar cycles. So when the full moon is in Aries, it's a good time for a fiery climax, apparently. Maybe those 3 that I just read could be the message for all of us today. Or not. Like I said, I didn't buy these to give readings. I bought them as gifts with purchase, but just for fun, there's a little reading for whoever gets this junk journal. So yeah, this detachable bookmark / pocket also has a little hidden spot within it to write even more. I made this little fold down grid paper inclusion. And then on the other side in this pocket, I attached a scrap. So how I made the cover out of this scrapbooking paper, I just rounded the edges of the leftover strip to make one more bookmark, left it blank on the other side so you can write on it or draw on it or stick stickers to it or whatever. There's the other side of my Moon Gazers print. And then that brings us to the end of the book. So to adorn the back cover, in the inner cover, I stuck an envelope with just a blank flat card. And of course, that envelope can be filled with anything you like. I stuck another card here, so that can be journaled on or left blank or taken out and given to somebody. And on the very back page, the moon phases with the mountains. And I left this fairly unadorned again, so that whoever winds up buying it can decorate it as they see fit. It's funny, after I made this junk journal, I was contemplating like the different crafty things and the different Etsy shops I have, like these kinds of necklaces, how long it takes me to make a necklace like this versus how long it takes to make a junk journal. This journal took 2 weeks to make. Like one day I spent a day picking the images for the pages and printing them out. Another day I dyed the paper like with coffee dye. Another day I dyed the doilies. It took I would say a full hour at least to glue down these washi strips because I wanted them to be aligned perfectly. That's the kind of thing that if one of them, like if they weren't straight or if there was a gap between 2 of them, that's the kind of nitpicky little thing that would just annoy the hell out of me. So I like to give my customers the most perfect looking edges on a random scrapbook possible, because it would bug me if it wasn't perfect, so maybe it would bug them too. But it's funny, I was thinking about like what makes a book precious and what makes a piece of jewelry precious. And like something like a necklace like this, the crystals and the beads were valuable, precious materials even before they were made into a necklace. Like the Tektite in this has an intrinsic value to it even before it's made into a talisman. all of these gems, all of these beads. So it's like the value of jewelry, it's easier to assess based on the value of the stones used in it, and then like next to the value of the stones goes the time it took to make the piece and the rarity of putting all those pieces together. But for a journal like this, it basically, what I was thinking of was the inequity when it comes to pay. Like if I ever made a piece of jewelry that took me 2 weeks to make, where like I solidly worked on it every day for those 2 weeks, like drawing this border took 24 hours for it to dry. So after painting this, the frame around the picture, like I had to wait 24 hours before I could put anything else in it. Waiting for this page to dry because it was glued down and putting something heavy over it. Just every step of the journey to make a junk journal takes time. And I was thinking, like, if I made a piece of jewelry that took this long, that would be like $1,000 piece of jewelry. And yet when the same amount of time and energy and creativity is put into something where the materials themselves, even though to me paper is valuable and cool, like wax is cheap, coffee dyed paper is cheap, these manila envelopes are cheap, like stickers are cheap, vintage stamps, they can be a little bit more expensive. I'll give that one the value. That's a more expensive material, but generally speaking, nothing that went into this is really expensive. And yet, like, how do you put a price on it? So anyway, I've priced it in my Etsy shop, Art of Gems Stationery, at a price that to me is way cheaper than the amount of time I spent making it. So we'll see how many more of these junk journals I make. Forget that. I'm gonna make tons more because I love making them, and if they sell, that's just bonus. That's just the money I can use to buy more materials to make more of them. But yeah, I just wanted to share this one. And if for no other reason than to inspire you to dig out your scraps of old paper and old envelopes and old cards and stamps that appear in the mail on letters people send to you that are too pretty to throw away. I'm just so grateful that a few months ago I came across videos on YouTube about junk journals and got this idea to start making them myself. So yeah, I think, like I said, the reason I wanted to do a complete flip through and show you every single page is just to share what I've done in one of these, and that if you wanted to start making your own junk journals, there's some ideas for you. And if you decide to buy it, maybe let me know what those 3 cards were, because I'm not gonna look. That's for whoever buys this. And if you want to share it, please do. I would be curious. Anyhow, I think I have babbled enough in this video and covered enough topics for one day. Thank you for listening to my podcast / watching the video if you were also watching the screen while listening. It's always a pleasure to share with you here on YouTube. I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you in advance for leaving comments. That really helps me as a creator on YouTube because it boosts the videos. I don't even know what, like it boosted in the YouTube algorithm somehow by telling the YouTube computers that people are engaging with it. So yeah, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, and for not skipping the ads, because that's always helpful. Every penny counts. Not that pennies even exist anymore here in Canada, but you know what I mean. And if you feel so inclined to buy something from either my jewelry shop or my stationery shop, I'll put the links in the video description below. Mention seeing this video and I will include for you one of these moon cards, and also a special gift just for my YouTube viewers. Like with every order in my stationery shop, I try to make every order into what they call happy mail, by decorating the envelope with stickers and washi tape and maybe some doodled pictures on it. And I always include a free sticker or 2 or 10, like with every purchase. Let's face it, like I'm a nerd for paper goods, as you can tell by this journal flip through. So I really go wild when people buy stuff from my stationery shop to try to make it into the kind of package that if I received it, I would be super excited. But if you mention this video, I will add even more goodies, is what I'm saying here. And in my jewelry shop too, I include a free pendant, like a free little charm, with every purchase from that shop, unless somebody just buys like $1 hemp string, in which case, as a free gift with purchase, I send them a second hemp string. Like I kind of coordinate the free gift to the amount spent, as I think all Etsy shop owners do. Those who give free gifts. I mean, sometimes I buy stuff from an Etsy shop and it comes in a plain package wrapped poorly with no thank you note from the creator and no little gift with purchase. And to me, that's always a little disappointing, because it's like if I wanted a generic thing like that, I'd order from Amazon. But anyway, maybe that's just me. You don't want to put too high of expectations on people, but I'm the kind of Etsy artist who still has fun wrapping the orders and choosing a free gift to make someone's day and giving a handwritten thank you note with the order. But anyway, on top of the usual free gift with purchase, if you mention seeing this video when you buy anything, I'll throw in a little something something extra. And I still have a Patreon account. I think the majority of the people who were my patrons on Patreon unpatroned me because I stopped making content specifically about the cult that I left. And I created that Patreon account when I was at the height of exposing that cult. And so I'm grateful to the contributions they made while they were contributing. It really helped me stress less about the fact that I was channeling all of my time and energy into exposing a cult. And so thank you to all of you who were patrons and who are no longer patrons. I'm grateful for the gift you gave when you gave it. And to others, I still have Patreon. I'm thinking of kind of restructuring my Patreon account completely and making it more of a crystal themed, art themed, stationery themed Patreon account, where maybe with different tiers of contribution, there will be different packages, like maybe a jewelry tutorial for one tier and the free monthly video also with that first tier, and then for other tiers maybe things like craft swaps or junk journal downloadable pages to make journals. I don't know. I'm still thinking about that. The reason I mention it in this video is if you have joined me on Patreon and you're sending me like a couple bucks a month or whatever it might be, thank you. And don't worry, I'm not neglecting it deliberately. I'm not giving stuff to my Patreons because I don't care. It's that I'm still trying to figure out how to best use that platform. And if you have ideas or suggestions, ideally digital gifts I can give, like if you are a patron or would become one, would you be happy with, for example, if every month I gave a download printable version of like one of my black and white abstract drawings that can be colored? Or would you be interested in, like, say for example, a printed photocopy of some of the pages of the journal that are really collaged? Like, what kind of digital gift would you most enjoy? Anyway, let me know. And yeah, with that, I will finally let you go and see you in the next video. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, Happy New Year. Much love. Bye-bye.